Visit No One Likes Us Clothing for all your Millwall clobber. www.noonelikesus.co.uk.
Hi, I'm Gary Rowett, and you're listening to the world-famous Achtung Millwall.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Something for the Weekend. After what's been actually a fairly busy week podcasting for me, listeners. It was unplanned. I actually had a fairly nice, clear week planned. And now I've been turning them out day by day pretty much for one reason or another. Not least is the live show that my compadre on the show today, Neil Fissler. Welcome to the show, Neil.
Nick, how you going, mate?
I was just thinking about that live show. That was impromptu and that wasn't planned. added a layer to the week, didn't it? We did a Twitter Spaces live show, listeners.
I'm mentally scarred for life over that one. Yeah, but little did we know that if we both went onto Twitter, that people would actually want to listen to us. Neither of us took that into account when we thought it would be a very quick 5 minutes to find out how it all worked. And then
How naive. So we had no structure. It was literally just a test because you have to do it off your mobile phone. This is I've never used it before. I've seen them and I've never really dabbled in the realm of live broadcasts via Twitter. So it really was just a how does it work type of thing, Neil, wasn't it? You know, what happens? And then suddenly we acquired an audience. And I edited the footage afterwards. There was a lot of what I would call raw stuff in there, which had to go. But actually, when I listened to it afterwards, I was actually surprised. We produced something that was reasonably listenable. I hope listeners would agree with that. But we've got some good voices on there. It was really nice to hear, some people came in on the call that we wouldn't otherwise have expected. I quite enjoyed it, actually, in the benefit of hindsight.
Mate, it definitely gives you a buzz. I know when I was on the other podcast, we used to do the YouTube live lockdown. You buzzed for about an hour beforehand and then for about 4 hours afterwards. It was just some kind of live broadcast and... it's just one of those things that you used to see these things go on, or you'd watch and hear television and radio. Then all of a sudden, the modern miracles of technology means that you can suddenly broadcast to yourself, can't you? It's absolutely mind blowing. It's also very, very, very dangerous.
It has its pitfalls. We had some really good voices on the show that we did, impromptu show, as I've said, and it was really nice to to get the people that contributed. I mean, there's always a danger that you're going to get all sorts of things on there, and that's the risk that you take. Thankfully, you can. I managed to record the footage and then edit it, so that's going to be my key. So that's there is a dangerous element, as you say, but I enjoy it. We're going to do another one at some stage. We're able to do it for today's show for various reasons, but we will do another one because I think people seem to enjoy it, Neil. And we had some really nice comments afterwards and people saying I'd like to get involved. I think the key is to keep the number of voices on the call. This was a very swift learning curve. We keep the number of voices on the call reasonably limited because otherwise you get chaos quite quickly. So I think that's my main lesson that I took out of it. Anyway,
realised that we needed a bit of structure on it. That you can't just really go on to this and
start talking.
Wait, but I think what you need is, I think you're right. I think if we went on and we started winging it again, that you just have less callers, and that I'm probably experienced enough that I can start winging it, and we can bring people in that way. But no, it's definitely something that we're going to look forward to doing. It was good to actually, all of a sudden, we picked up an American who had absolutely no affinity to Millwall at all, and she came on because because a goalkeeper who never played a game for us is playing for a club in America.
The Houston Dynamo, that's Derby. She actually follows us from afar. I don't think Derby's ever been over, but I did a little call with her because I was intrigued by this listener from Houston, and she follows the American MLS club, the Houston Dynamos. But yeah, I think that's another thing, really. I always forget the internet is a worldwide thing, quite literally, isn't it? It's the World Wide Web. So you get people listening from all sorts of places, and I think it's kind of wonderful, really. I enjoyed it. We will do it again, but next time, listeners, we'll have a few notes and a few bit of structure to the conversation.
It certainly makes the world a smaller place, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Yeah.
We were kids, all of these far-flung places, there were just things that you read about and you saw in an atlas. Yet thanks to modern technology, you can actually speak to people from them. We're just on Twitter.
It's also this thing of the kind of the linkage is Millwall Football Club, this small little club from Bermondsey that we all love, and yet sometimes it's easy to forget because it's quite it's a small little world that we live in at Millwall, but suddenly you get a glimpse that actually its name does extend all around the world. It does carry some name everywhere that you go. It's just really interesting. So yeah, thank you to everyone that took part, and thank you to everyone that's listened to the show afterwards. We will do another one, and I will do an edited version afterwards so that you can listen to it in the privacy of your car, gym, or wherever you take the podcast. Neil, it's been a busy week on other fronts at Millwall FC, looking at this story about will he, won't he go to the Hawthorns. Gary Rowett has been linked with the West Bromwich Albion vacant job, which seems to be largely fading away now. I mean, I haven't got the story, but I think their chief exec said he's not featuring in. I can't remember how it was put, but Gary Rowett doesn't feature in their consideration for the WBA job.
Yeah, Ron Gurley. This to me smacks of an agent making himself busy and talking up a client, because it's kind of came out of nowhere. Everybody knows that he would probably jump at the chance to move back to the Midlands. His family, his wife, and I think his children live in the Derby area.
East Midlands, yeah,
kind of area. And he spends a lot of time away from them. And I think he used to go home after games and then reappear on a Monday or a Tuesday. Hasn't moved them down. That's totally understandable if your family's settled and whatever else. But it was a strange old one, because on one hand you think, he'd probably want to get back to the Midlands. But on the other hand, West Brom, surely they could have a pick of whoever they wanted. And there's a lot of big name managers out of work at the minute at this level, isn't there?
There are. Yeah.
You've got Sean Dyche, you've got Chris Wilder, you've got umpteen other people. So why would they? I would say this has not gone down too well in the Millwall boardroom. I think John Berylson is somebody, by all accounts, who is a very loyal person.
Yeah, we've seen that repeatedly, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been shown that he is very patient with managers. He's not like some American owners or some other owners that just sack. Let's face it, Emma Raducanu's been through as many coaches as bloody what?
Well, yeah. I mean, also John Berylson has invested. I mean, obviously it's all relative, and West Bromwich Albion would command more money and resources, etc. But by Millwall standards, John Berylson has backed Gary Rowett both through some difficult runs of form. I mean, I know that we'll come on to the recent seasons shortly, but we have had some difficult spells, Neil, where we can't find a win, and the football has been pretty poor. And I can't believe the club and John Berylson don't pick up on the same comments that the likes of us say on this show and the others. Fans, are expressing an opinion, they pick up on it, but they backed him. So I think you're right. I mean, everyone's entitled to better themselves in a work sense, but equally, owners and those that have backed you are entitled to get the arse if they get a sense that you're not showing them the kind of loyalty or solidarity, whatever word you want to choose, in return. I think you're right. I don't think it would have gone down particularly pleasantly inside the boardroom.
I think that for John Berylson to sack Gary Rowett, I don't think it would happen immediately. I think it would take us to be doomed almost in the bottom three. He gives people plenty of time to turn things around, and I think Rowett started to turn it around to a certain extent with changing the formation. We've looked a lot more comfortable. But by the same token, you read the South London press and the news at Den, and he seems to be absolutely itching to change back to his favoured five at the back. And I don't know how well that will go down. It needs, I think for him to go, it would need home crowds to take that top
the turn. Yeah.
Like it did with Hollowards, as it did with Neil Harris to a certain extent.
Well, I think once you get a collapsing, the collapsing form in the result sense, because I think that I always think that Millwall's crowd has this reputation for toxicity and all the rest of it, but I've always been really impressed, certainly the last 10 to 15 years, with the Millwall crowd's patience. I mean, I think back to the likes of Lomas and Spackman and Holloway and to some extent the man, even Harris at the end, and now with Rowett. They're very patient. I don't, this reputation for turning. It takes a lot to get a Millwall crowd to turn on the manager.
Yeah, but it does. Kenny Jackett towards the end, where it was unwatchable, wasn't it, for quite a long time towards the end of his reign. And you're right. We have got this reputation, but no, it does. It takes an awful lot for Millwall to turn on the manager. But what has been interesting this week is to actually see the number of people that actually want him out. And I'm not
celebratory mood when the story first broke. It was almost
about 8, who's a well-known, doesn't like him. Yeah, but the sheer number of people, you look on Hoff, you look on Twitter, and what I've said for quite a long time, that there's a swell of fans, that Millwall fans, that want to knock the club at any opportunity. And there's also you also get the sense that there's a large group of fans that actually want Rowett to fail, so they can say, "Oh well, we told you so," and they want him gone. Okay, the football is awful. The football has been awful for quite a long
this season, certainly. Some while before, really. Yeah.
We changed the formation the other week, and all of a sudden, we look like a decent team again. Fleming looks like the Bermondsey Burb camp at long last. And I just think we just need this to stop this square pegs for round holes, playing vocal slammer out wide and things like that. Has to stop. But then again, he recruited to have 2 wing backs, didn't he? And he isn't playing with them at the minute. So it does leave us kind of lopsided on one side, and you can't. In times past, you'd have just gone out into the transfer market, wouldn't you, and recruited somebody because the window's closed.
Yeah, I mean, when you read his interviews, I mean, as we've put it a few times on this show, he's kind of been dragged, kicking and screaming, to some extent, to the 4-man back line, which does feel more settled. In some interesting interviews, I mentioned Sean Hutchinson speaking to, I think it was London News, where he praised the 4-man, back line, and saying how much better. We played. So it was reasonably diplomatically put, so it wasn't quite as naked as I've put it there, listeners. But fundamentally, Sean Hutchinson, club captain, was praising this four-man back line, which to some extent the manager has been forced to change to because of poor results and almost certainly the comments that you'll be hearing each time he takes the field, certainly at the Den. So I mean, he does seem to maintain this desire to get back to the three-man central defenders and the wing backs. And I think partly that's because that's how the big clubs play, and I can't remember how he put it in one interview, but it's been successful at the top level, the elite level, whatever choice of words, and he seems to think that it's been successful for us. I suppose to some extent, when you look at the end of season finishing points, and even this little table that you've put together here, Neil, the points comparison with the last few seasons, where we are after 13 games, the start we've made isn't terribly different, really, to the starts we've made in each of his seasons. We do seem to start cold and then warm up, and you can't deny the fact that we've finished in league positions that are historically pretty good by Millwall standards. That will be his answer to that point, I think.
Yeah, but he also has to remember that the likes of Manchester City and Manchester United, to a certain extent, although they do play two at the back, don't they? But these so-called big clubs that do go out and play that formation, they can spend 40
unlimited sums,
£50 on the left back or a left-sided wing back or a right wing back, and we don't have that luxury, and we're dealing at a lower level, aren't we? And
well, we are. We also need to excite the crowd, Neil, in a way that, to some extent, Manchester City will be contenders for every crown that they take part, every competition they take part in, because they have the world
is in the positions that they want to play, or
world-class 11 to choose from, and a world-class squad. So you don't need the crowd as your 12th man. We do, and I think that's my main criticism. Looking at this points comparison, listeners. I mean, we were after 13 games in 2017, we were 15th in the table with 16 points. 2018, we were 22nd, not so good, with just 10 points. But if you go back to 2019-20, we were 16th with 15 points, and so it goes. 2021, 10th, 19 points, in the middle of a 10-game winless run. I've forgotten that. And 10th place, 21-22 with 18 points. So we've got 17 points. So we're round about par, really, Neil, aren't we? With one or two small exceptions of pretty much where we've been in each of his seasons. And then we tend to find some form at some point. He seems to scratch out runs and little sequences where we boost up the table.
Yeah, you have a look at most of it. You go back to 2019, 2020. The 14th match, which is the game we're playing this weekend, was actually his first in charge, and it was a 2-0 win over Stoke City. But you're right. You have a look at any season that Gary Rowett has actually managed Millwall. We have gone on very long unbeaten runs, and we are capable of that even this season. I think it wouldn't surprise me if at some point we went 10, 11, 12 games undefeated. Yeah, there will be a few draws in there because that's just the way that it is, isn't it? But we are about par, and some people will point out, well, we're not any better now than when Neil Harris left us, which to be honest, I've said it. Yeah, we've said it many times on this show and on the live stream. there are some people that'd be happy to see Millwall play in the Conference South as long as Neil Harris was still in charge.
He might have achieved that dream the way it was going towards the end of his time.
Exactly.
I think, because the football was limited then. It was just limited in a more 4-4-2 style.
We've got better players. Let's be honest.
Oh, we've got a lot better players. We'll come on to a couple of them in the next piece. But you're right. I mean, we've signed. We have even the failures, even the duds, and we can all laugh at the likes of Budvarsson and Conor Mahoney and the other Scalak. The aim was upwards all the time, and there's always a gamble in any signing. They didn't work, and that's the way it worked out. But money got spent. The club is trying to aim upwards. I do find it odd. I think that you're right in identifying a certain seam of Millwall opinion that prefers to see us get beat because it proves that their assessment or view of players or the management or tactics, whatever, was correct. I've never understood that really, because whatever the circumstances, you're there to support your club, Millwall. That's who we follow. How anyone can truly want us to fail in order to make a personal point of some sort is.
There are people outside of the club that want us to fail.
We've got a world against us. I don't know if anyone's noticed. The whole world wants us to fail. We should be wanting us to win.
We've got a section of our support that can't wait for us to fail, just so they can say, "Oh yeah, no, I told you so," and so they don't have to admit they're wrong.
They used to call it on House of Fun the haters' arms, drinking in the haters' arms. I can't remember. I think that was the expression.
The haters is full at every Saturday lunchtime. All of a sudden they have to close for a stock take by 5 o'clock whenever we win.
When the Angelo Peronis run out.
It's a strange old scenario. But then again, it's part of why we love this club, isn't it? That we have got such a diverse.
That's one way to put it.
No, it's true though, isn't it? We have got such a diverse range of fans, and opinions that we don't think like other people, do we? If you're a Millwall fan, you do not look upon the world.
No, that's true.
I've said to people down here, and when I've been out, and they say, "Oh, you don't look upon life like everyone else." I said, "No, I'm a Millwall fan. We do not look upon life. It's not a simplistic view that we have on things. We do look at things from a different angle and a different way, and that's partly why I actually love this club and."
I think you're right. I mean, my wife is endlessly fascinated with the amount of conversation that gets generated over what is a fairly lowly placed club in comparison to the greats of the game. But there we are. That's because we care and we give a shit. And I think you're right, Neil. I think you're capturing something there. Just to close this piece on the story stroke non-story of Gary Rowett's departure. There's an interview on London News. He says, "I'm here," which I think is actually quite a good philosophical point. We're all just here, aren't we? As far as I'm concerned, I'm here. I'm here, concentrating on trying to win games of football. I think it's that point. We've made it a few times that from Gary Rowett's point of view, and for a lot of players, it's a job. It's for us. It's something deep that runs in the blood. For him, it's a job, and if he gets a better job, he'll probably take it. You can argue about how right and wrong that is, but that's how we approach the rest of life, isn't it? That's how we approach.
That's life anyway, though, Nick, isn't it? If somebody offers me a better job,
you'd probably go for it, wouldn't you? With more money, who wouldn't?
Yeah, well, I'll see you later. Yeah, I'll work out a month or whatever it is, and you take it. And football's no different. Let's be honest. It works both ways. If you're not doing your job in football, we'll kick you out.
That's right. Yeah, loyalty swing is a two-way road, isn't it?
It's a strange old thing, football, isn't it? That you can complain that the manager will walk out on you and will take another job. Yet at the same time, you want to see him gone after you don't win 3 or 4 games or 5 games. It's time for a change, and he hasn't signed good enough players. It's wonderful. It's
Absolutely.
it's such a contradiction. The Conservative Party are taking notes, I think.
It's a good moment for us to take a short advertising break. We'll be back after these messages.
Achtung, Millwall.
Welcome back to the show, listeners. I want to move us along. There's a really nice phrase. I like this phrase. It's Billy Mitchell, Neil, talking about the 2 continental stars, and I use that word quite deliberately in the case of Zian Fleming, but also Andreas Vogelsammer, we hope will develop into a star. Billy Mitchell talking to the South London Press says they've both been fantastic. You can tell, particularly Zian has a proper, genuine, deep love for football. He's absolutely fascinated by it. Most of the boys are, but particularly Flem. You can see him practicing his free kicks and working on different techniques. And this is the point I think I made the other day. I think I might have said it in the live show, or might have been to Harry, that they're both Andreas Vogelsammer and Zian Fleming come from that continental tradition where you want to do a lot of work on the training field. I think there was a bit of a contrast with the British Isles mentality that you want to get down the bookmakers or the or the golf course or wherever footballers go now. It used to be the pub. They probably don't go to the pub so much. But the Continentals do seem to enjoy and make a feature of putting the work in on the training ground, working on technique. And I just think that's a really nice phrase, a deep love of football. It's nice to see, nice to read about in one of our players.
Mate, Zian Fleming, I think, came through the factory at Ajax, didn't he? And they would have been taught from a very early age about technique, and as they say, practice makes perfect. And then you see some of the things that he does in games, and you think, no wonder you can do them if you put in that kind of thing in. But also, I think in rugby, I'm going to use a rugby analogy here, that it's kind of setting an example, isn't it, to your teammates? If your teammates see you out on the training pitch practicing your free kicks for an hour after training, and Carl Bates, I think, makes the point on commentary that you see Fleming practicing free kicks when everyone else has gone in at the start of the game. He'll take a couple of free kicks, won't he, from outrageous,
he will. Angles, yeah.
And I think that might rub off on. It looks as if, or it sounds as if it's rubbing off on Billy Mitchell.
Great to see.
That they'll see Zian Fleming raising his game, so they almost think, well, blimey, if I want to stay in this team, I've got to raise my standard. So you might find that Billy Mitchell stays out on the training pitch for a little bit longer, practicing his 2-foot tackles or whatever. Sorry, Billy. Yeah, but you know what I mean. Practicing technical aspects of his game, and
you can never over practice. You can never. You mentioned rugby. I mentioned cricket in the same way. I mean, a top batsman practices technique constantly. You can't. As soon as you start to take your foot off that particular gas pedal, Neil, you're going to build errors into your game and you'll get punished for it. And football is the same. I just think I'm kind of going around in circles in my head because it's really nice to read this piece. And I'm just looking at a quote here that talking about, Billy's talking about Fleming. He says sometimes the starting 11 come off of a training slightly earlier or do a shorter session on a Monday. But Fleming is still out there watching the other games. He and Vogie have a deep love that keeps them out there that much longer. Billy likes that. It's refreshing. I mean, it shouldn't be surprising. If you're making a profession in the sport, then that's kind of what I would hope, would come with the turf. Don't always get it, but that's really, really nice to read that stuff. I was really struck by this.
Yeah, but Johnny Wilkinson used to practice his kicking for hours after training. Yeah, but they used to have to go out and drag him in sometimes because it was. Yeah, it's almost that thing when you were a kid and it started to get too dark and you were practicing kicking a ball against the wall, and I think Bradman used to do it with a golf ball and a stump, didn't he? Trying to connection, and you carried on at least until it was too dark to bloody continue, and we get the impression that these lads they're having a good effects on the rest of the squad, and long may it continue. Hopefully.
Long may it continue. Yeah, great report, like it. More of that, please, around the Millwall squad. We've got a couple of TV related stories here, Neil. First one up is for some reason Sky TV seems fixated on Luton at home to Millwall. They always seem to show it as a live fixture. They've moved it to the date of the prospective date. Whether we'll be involved in the World Cup final, I don't know. But they've brought forward they've changed the coverage to 12:30 on December the 18th, which will clash potentially with. I think the World Cup final would kick off at 3:00 that afternoon. We do seem to get Luton away on TV quite a bit. Maybe they think there's going to be another riot there or something. I never quite understand why it always gets picked.
That thought had just come into my mind.
It's tasty,
Miracle. On the day that Millwall started.
I bet that is it. I bet mean, they've got some kid in there that's read about 1985 and thinks that's every time we play Luton now. There's always an edge to it.
Yeah, but also part of it will also be viewing figures. They don't want BBC and ITV to have all the viewing figures, but you'd have thought common sense would have. That actually surprised me. Also, part of it could be that they want to pick a reasonably local fixture. I haven't seen all of the potential games for that day, but I guess if England are involved in the World Cup final, they could always change the kickoff time. It's a strange old game to pick because neither of us are doing particularly well this season, are we? Luton in and around where we are, and
no, I can't see it being a massive audience for it on World Cup final day. Anyway, but it's the 18th
game. It just seems picking that game to inconvenience everyone.
We've certainly achieved that, that's for sure. But anyway, there it is. It's a live TV game, 12:30 p.m. Saturday, December the 18th.
They don't like showing us at home, do they? Because they have to give us a bigger fee, so they always try and squeeze us away from home when they
some Millwall coverage on the cheap. Yeah, that they have to. They're contractually obliged to show a certain amount of us, aren't they? So it's an unloving relationship between Millwall and Sky Television, but there we are. The other big TV story that you've picked out, Neil, actually, there's a big story. I saw this on Twitter the other day. This is the potential end of the 3:00 Saturday afternoon blackout. At the moment, there's a moratorium on showing live coverage of football on Saturday afternoon to protect the 3:00 Saturday afternoon traditional, kickoff time. But the EFL are considering ending that blackout from the 2024-25 season. They're offering packages to various major players, Google, Netflix, Amazon, Sky, BT, etc. Aiming for a £200 million a year deal, but that will include the potential to show live football at 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon. And there's, I don't mean this to sound disparaging, but there's what I call the usual kind of opposition to it from various, the Football Supporters Association and others to this particular move. I think it's inevitable that this will happen, Neil, especially if that kind of money is available to breach it. The EFL and its constituent clubs aren't really in a position to. They can make more money. They will do, won't they? And it's like a sacred cow at the moment. The 3:00 Saturday blackout.
Yeah, but let's face it. The Football Supporters Association, they'd give a paracetamol a headache, wouldn't they? With all their with all their objections to this, that, and the other. It's something that I think you have to move with the times, and the times are that you cannot box off this 3 p.m.
No.
Because there are people that can't get to games, and you've also got illegal streaming, and
Well, you can get round it. I mean, we won't disclose too much. Everyone knows you can get round it, so
the world
it's
has
not much of a blackout.
Yeah, but the way that you get things now, the world's changed. The world's evolving, so I think you've got to evolve with it. Apparently, they think that the Zone, which is chiefly at the moment a boxing platform.
Right. Yeah.
Well, certainly in this country they do have rights all over the world, but apparently there's some talk that they're going to make a major play for this and show every EFL or Championship game on their platform, which I've got to be honest, I think it's a good thing myself, because it will cut out the stupidity of hopefully 7:45 kickoffs on Saturday night. Swansea against Sunderland going down to Swansea and ridiculous things that Sky bring in, that they seem to change things on the whim and expect people to go from one end of the country to the other when there's no transport. So this move away from that, and that's not a bad thing. And I do think that choice comes into it. The good thing with IPTV, for those people that don't know about it, is that you can watch games on a whim.
There's a demand, whether you like it or not. There's a demand for it.
No, exactly. And this 3 p.m. blackout has been in force since the 60s, and I think a lot of it is to do with, or certainly was to do with, they didn't want to hit crowds particularly lower down.
Non-league, I think, are the most. And Leagues 2 and 1. As well.
But the good thing with something like the Zone and app is that you pay your subscription, and once it's broadcast, it's there live for you to watch, or you can watch a rerun of it.
Yeah.
So you could still go out and watch a non-league game, knowing that you come back and on the Zone, your game is sitting there and you can watch it at your convenience. And
I was just going to make that point. I think that's the way for non-league to be protected. I mean, many non-league clubs make a thing at the moment of showing the Sky game or the BT game 12:30 in the clubhouse. So you're in there, you're having a beer. I mean, when I went to, where was it, Canvey last season, they've got a big clubhouse there, nice place, and they made a big thing. They've kind of encouraging for the next game. Come and watch whoever it was. Don't ask me which game it was. Arsenal versus someone maybe. Watch it at 12:30. Come and watch Canvey afterwards at live just outside, and then you're back in the clubhouse for the evening game. So that, I think if non-league clubs show some imagination in terms of kickoff times and how they pitch their I nearly said product, and I hate that word. How they pitch their games, it can be done. And I think you're right. I think we are in 2022 now, and that you've got to move with the times. And I think the sums of money that we're looking at there, Neil, I mean, 200 million a year as a target, it's not going to be easy to. Everything has a price, and I think this does have a price. So I think we are looking at it. I'd sooner pay Millwall a tenner and watch. I'd sooner pay the club to watch it up front and get it up, above board. And if you gave me that choice, I'd take it every time. I want to see Millwall play away when I can't go, which is a fair amount of time now. And I want to pay money to the club. I want us to progress. So that's the way to do it, I think. So I see this coming off. I see this happening.
Yeah, we were talking last week about Millwall taking money off an NFT company, weren't we? And clubs are looking for additional revenue streams, and because football isn't cheap, we rely on the generosity of John Berylson to put his hand in his pocket every year to cover 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 million pound losses, don't we, or whatever we incur.
Absolutely.
So I do think it's a good thing, and I do think that with a bit of imagination, it can work. Yeah. The one fear is that then all of a sudden you're going to have the likes of La Liga being able to broadcast in this country at 3 p.m. So Classico, which I think was blocked a couple of times from this country, they had to show it on a 5-minute delay and things like that. But then again, it swings in roundabouts, doesn't it? I think if you really want to go out and watch a game and you're motivated to go out and watch a game and not watch it on television, I think you'll do it. But there are people that aren't motivated to go out and watch games. The other
or maybe can't. You know, I mean, it's not everyone that can. There's many reasons for that.
The other
I personally,
I was motivated to watch Millwall and QPR, I think it was. So what did I do? I went out and watched the local game and thoroughly enjoyed it. But tomorrow, I'm quite looking forward to Bristol City because we've had a couple of decent performances. So you start.
Well, we looked like an attacking unit, didn't we? I would always believe that you can't beat being at a game. I think you just can't beat the atmosphere, even the most, you know, the most smallest scale. You can't beat being in the fresh air and the crunch of the tackle and all the sensory parts of a football match. But, you know, as a Millwall follower, I can't always get to every away game, and you do want to follow your side. And like you say, at the moment, we've shown a little bit of attacking nous, and it'd be nice to get a stream for Bristol City, and it'd be nice to do it above board and pay Millwall to watch it, because that's how I want to, you know, support the club. So I think the story will develop in the way that it's portrayed. I think it's a Daily Mail story here to say that this 3 p.m. blackout is. You know, is for the coming towards its end, I think.
The Premier League are going to oppose it, but then again, they're going to oppose everything, aren't they?
Because they really need the money. They're
doesn't it? It erodes the hold that they can get over us, and they can try and bully us into accepting B teams in things and. Yeah,
I did read that the National League clubs were trying to get a pay-per-view package for their live streams, and it's the way the world is going. And you know, anything that gets more money into clubs at a lower level, Neil, I think has got to be a good thing.
Yeah, I think the National League was driven by the Hollywood people that
Ryan Reynolds,
and Rob Mackle, whatever he's called.
Yeah.
And a lot of American owners see every American football match is available. Every NFL game is available.
Baseball's the same, yeah.
For I think every MLS game is available. Yeah. Every ice hockey game is available. Yeah. And they can't get their heads around over when they buy Premier League clubs that we only show 2 championship games a week, and I just think it's just the way the world's evolving. It's all about money now.
Yeah,
but it will happen. It will happen, and hopefully, but I did see that the National League, they were saying, "Oh, it's conflicted because we've sold our rights to BT and got rights for this, that, and the other. That they can't do it." I think. They
will move towards it, I think. But
I've been watching that Barnet game last weekend. Wasn't there a game finished 7-6 or 6-5 or something like that?
Something like that, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, some of the games are pretty entertaining. I mean, you know, you mentioned La Liga earlier on. I mean, I would never go out of my way to watch a La Liga game particularly, but it's more if it's on. It's like, you know, you see the German show football. You know, if you want to watch a game of football and it's on, you'll put it on and it's just available. I think that's how I would approach a lot of that kind of. I don't really see foreign leagues as competition, particularly for English or British games. But I think the streaming and the revenue generation are going to drive this. I think it will come, whatever the football supporters and the other kind of anti groups that you see online say. I just think it's inevitable.
Achtung, Millwall.
Just one last point before we close the show. Actually, it's a couple of points. The coronation. I hadn't appreciated the last day of the football season. Is May the 6th, and that's now been set as Coronation Day for King Charles III. So I imagine, mind you, don't they play the last set of fixtures on a Sunday on the last game of the season? I wonder whether this would be a Saturday than when you have coronations. I wouldn't have thought a Sunday for a coronation, but there's certainly an inbuilt clash for that weekend, isn't there? Coming.
Yeah, you wonder. You wonder what else we have to give up because of this mob.
Yeah,
Lost the game recently, and no, it was something that appeared online the other day. It depends. I think they're fairly fluid. I think they like to have all the games kicking off
same time on the Sunday, and in the champ. I think the leagues 1 and 2.
I've just looked online, and we're due to be at home to Blackburn Rovers at 3 p.m. on Saturday the 6th. So, that's going to be out on a number of ways, isn't it?
Maybe move it to the Sunday. I don't know if that. Who knows? But there's certainly a clash there if that's the day of coronation.
Especially in London, because of obviously the eyes of the world. We only look at the operation for the Queen's funeral.
The policing was massive, wasn't it? Just as a total tangent, it's just occurred to me actually. I was struck when at the Middlesbrough game last week. I don't know what intelligence they work on. Maybe Mill versus Middlesbrough was a profile fixture.
Their police.
But then we had the territorial support group. I was outside. I mean, they would always stand there like they're occupying forces, like the Germans have just arrived in the Channel Islands. The way they stand there. I thought, is this really a profile fixture? Because there were, Borough fans and red shirts milling around at the cafe. I saw a couple there. No problems. It was not wouldn't have been a fixture that struck me as particularly tasty, Neil, historically. There might have been the odd thing here and there, but not one that really, if you said to me at the start of the season, where are the tasty fixtures? It wouldn't have been Mill versus Borough. But we had the TSG with van loads of them outside, all standing there in their riot gear, in their, flame-proof and helmets. I don't know what they come up with this. I don't know. It must have been expensive.
Completely honest about this situation. Yeah, you've got Swampy and his pals running riot in central London,
sitting down, occupying Piccadilly Circus or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, sitting in the middle of a road, and they can't arrest them because it hasn't met a threshold. Do me a favour. But football fans, to inconvenience, are the softest target of the lot. Apparently, a lot of people were saying on Hoff that they had police sniffer dogs.
Did they?
Stopping you when you went on the other side of the turnstiles, looking for packets of one or two illegal substances.
Yeah.
There were reports of innocent people being taken into rooms for searches, just leaving their kids on the concourse, being dragged out because they might have been around somebody in a pub or elsewhere who'd been smoking.
Been used. Yeah.
And it lingers to them, and these highly trained dogs have obviously picked up on the scent and on the smell. It just seems that particularly Millwall fans, we're just an easy target, aren't we? And it really, really annoys me. Yeah, was it because I think they didn't run a ticket promotion or something like that?
It was packed. There was loads. I mean, I don't have a problem with ticket promotions. I don't have a problem with European or North American fans. Far from it. It amuses me, in a way. But the block one was packed.
That there was an email sent out offering discount,
discount,
75-80% on tickets, and of course, it had a wonderful knock-on effect. Yeah,
15,500 in the house,
15,500 people in the den. Yeah, the vast majority of which would have spent money at the new concessions outside the ground, the new bars,
Yeah,
maybe the foreigners, but they love a scarf, don't they? And
they do.
and
Yeah.
the to remember their day down at Big Bad Millwall. Makes them look a bit edgy or whatever. But no, in all seriousness, and all of a sudden you've got these lines of coppers all acting like RoboCop, and
It
you can't.
was I just really struck. I mean, as I arrived, I thought, well, hello, what's all this? Because they line up like they're going into battle, don't they? They had this kind of militaristic
line, don't they, across entrance?
Yeah.
So you almost have to barge through them. Well, I sometimes wonder if it's a deliberate tactic to create confrontation.
I do wonder that because even the manner that they conduct themselves is kind of insolent. I don't know. It's very hard to describe it. And whenever you say it back to someone that's not been to football, you start to sound like you're an obsessive, one of these conspiracy types, you know. But they have a certain manner that's almost challenging. I think because they think they're in the Millwall, and of course it carries a name and a reputation. But I just really couldn't see what the TSG, a territorial support group, the so-called elite shock troops of the Metropolitan Police, were doing at Millwall versus Middlesbrough. Because, you know, unless they got intelligence that Borough bringing a mob down or something, I don't know. No one's ever going to know the answer to that question because only they get that intelligence. But otherwise, it's not a profile fixture. And I repeat my point: if it's a profile fixture, you enforce a strict separation of fans outside. You don't have the, some red shirts in the Lions Cafe. It's going to kick off. It didn't kick off because there's not a profile fixture and there's no real problem between Millwall and Borough fans. Not I'm aware of, other than individual incidents perhaps in the past, but nothing on a grand scale. It was really struck how expensive an operation that must have been. Van loads from outside. Anyway, there we are. I made the point. We ought to close our show, Neil, and I thought a good way to close our show was this really odd story. I don't know if you've seen it. I understand he's a singer. I sound like one of those old judges in court. Who is Drake? Drake apparently is a singer, a rapper. And for reasons beyond me, Barcelona, Mezun Club, more than a club, the representatives of Catalonia have decided to put Drake's logo on their shirt when they play the Real Madrid derby, the Clásico. And his logo is an owl, which is strange. I don't know what that has to do with Drake, but anyway, it's all part of Barcelona's alliance with Spotify. They're sponsored by the audio streaming service. So they're going to take the field with Drake's owl logo on their shirt. And it just occurred to me, I wonder who Millwall would have if we were to have a singer. Roy Green's the obvious one. Other than that, I was thinking of Nicky Hart, the Elvis impersonator that we keep mentioning. That's about the only other one I could think of that we might have. Tommy Steele, perhaps. I don't know.
Des O'Connor. There was well, I can't remember his name. Is it Scroobius Pip or Scribblus Pip?
Scroobius Pip, yeah, he could. He's a Millwall fan, yeah. We don't have two
celebrity rock stars, do we? But then again, with Barcelona, they had to sell their soul, didn't they? To
sold it some time ago with the Emirates, because they were traditionally. The Barcelona shirt was seen as being akin to the flag, wasn't it? It was like representation of Catalonia.
But unfortunately, whether that far in debt, they talk about unimaginative ways of parting with your money for £3 to watch a reserve game online and things like that. This lot have taken it to a whole new level. You listen to the Price of Football podcast, and almost every week they're coming up with another way that Barcelona have come to raise some revenue. And this is one. But then again, I guess if Spotify came along to Millwall and said, well, we'll offer you 5 times what Husky Chocolate are offering you, but 2 or 3 times a season, you've got to put Drake's owl on the front of your shirt.
Or some grime drill rapper out there, maybe.
Or Stormzy, or whatever. Yeah, but you're going to do it, aren't you? Yeah, but let's be honest.
We would, because we're skin.
Yeah, we were talking about how football's evolving earlier on, and this is just another way that football are evolving. It's like the third kit. The third kit has to be probably one of the most useless conceptions, apart from the pre-match handshake, taking the knee, the ball podium, and things. It's
VAR, yeah.
this is what they do to raise money now, isn't it? And
Even Barcelona. I mean, I'm not big on my Drake, Neil. I can't really. Actually, I don't. I could walk past Drake in the street, listeners. I wouldn't know him from Adam.
From what I know, And again, I've never. Yeah, but that's not my genre of music. I think anybody follows me on social media will know that I love my indie music, and if there's a decent indie band, I will share it with people. But to be honest, yeah, well, I'm like you. Yeah, but if I passed Drake down Sainsbury's later on, I wouldn't actually know it was Drake, to be honest. Storms, who I've had a row on Twitter with, I would recognise because he's about 9 foot tall.
You don't want a real life row with him in that case, but yeah, there we are. So Drake's logo. Listen, I mean, I say I don't know my Drake at all, and I shall not be seeking out his music. But it's an owl, like a
it's not music; it's noise. It's noise.
And they're going to be on the Barcelona shirts versus Real Madrid El Clasico. There we are. How the mighty have fallen. Neil, I think we've reached the end of our little agenda, mate. I want to say thank you to you for taking time out your Friday morning, as always.
Can I just say a couple of things? Yeah, but don't worry, it's not controversial. It's something that, I should have mentioned last week and I totally forgot, and that's Chris Bethel's wife, who I wrote, well-known Millwall fan, historian.
Absolutely, Chris, yeah.
Co-author of, not an author, he actually provided all of the photographs for the book. Well-known Millwall family, respected Millwall family. He lost his wife Eileen.
I'm sorry to hear that. I hadn't heard that. Wow.
The funeral yesterday, and I meant to mention it last week that obviously we are a small club, and things like this. She would have known people. I think I've probably phoned Bethel Towers a couple of times and spoken to her. And we are a small club, and there are times like this when people do come around, they gather around, don't they?
They do.
A tremendous Millwall family. His son Sam, who a lot of people know through social media, through Chris and to at games. Just like to say that that you're very much in our thoughts at the moment. And there's also Millwall Michael, who posted on Hoffers, I think Northampton.
Northampton Lion, yeah, I remember that name. Yeah.
Died very young, I think last weekend, the weekend before, and we'd just like to say RIP to them, and that we hope that you're in a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, wow, I didn't know either of those pieces of news. Condolences to Chris, and condolences also to Michael's family in that case. I do remember Northampton Lion from when I was on House of Fun, and I know Chris. As you say, is very well known, respected Millwall fan and family. So seconded, absolutely. That's taken me aback a little bit. So I think that's probably a good way to leave it there, Neil. RIP to both. Best wishes to Chris Bethell and his family, and obviously to the family of Michael too. Until the next episode, listeners, arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.